In our world now, there's a lot more mold than what we meets the eye than what we think. I'm saying this because like when you see like, oh, that like innocent mildew, there's also the word mildew, right?
Oh, yeah.
That innocent mildew in the shower, you think nothing of it. However, that could actually be a sign of moisture accumulation in your home. And if you're already dealing with a moldy situation, even that exposure to some of that mildew can create more burden on the body, essentially.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm Jenn Trepeck, your host and health coach, here with you every week for wellness without the weirdness. And we often talk about the ingredients in our food. We've also in some episodes talked about toxins in the world around us and in our homes. Today, we're going to double click on that focus and look at mold and mycotoxins. So to help us all learn more, I have a wonderful guest. She supports busy, health-minded professionals in taking back control of their health by giving them access to lab tests and resources so they can find the missing pieces of their health puzzle, actually fix what's wrong, and get back to feeling like themselves again. Using over a decade of personal training experience, training in functional diagnostic nutrition, transformational coaching, and a BS in kinesiology, she creates personalized health rebuilding programs for clients that are realistic and sustainable for long-lasting results, and that empower clients to be the boss of their own health. Today, she's here to pour into our Salad with a Side of Fries community. So please help me welcome Jenn Malecha.
Hey, what an introduction there.
You're welcome. I feel like the part that I missed was nice name and great spelling.
Yes, exactly. I often get like people ask me, are you a double N Jenn or a single N Jenn? I'm like, double N Jenn. We're better.
We are, right?
I'm just saying.
Yeah. So we'll start with more of your story and then dig into everything from there. One more bit of housekeeping. Let's tell our members what they're getting. So members, your recipe this week is for freezer-friendly, can't say that 10 times, freezer-friendly breakfast burritos. That whole thing is a tongue twister. I should have thought about that before. Anyway, freezer-friendly breakfast burritos. Basically, you can make these ahead, freeze them, pop one out to heat them up in the morning. It's a great recipe that you can use all the time and just change it up given, whatever you have in your house. It makes for very easy mornings, easier than it is to say what they are. And I mean, who couldn't use an easy morning? And then you're also getting the toxins checklist from Jenn Malecha, our featured guest today. Jenn, give everybody like the 10-second rundown of the toxin checklist.
Oh my gosh. So, we're going to talk a lot about toxins today. And the reality is that you can't see, hear, feel, or sense that there's toxins in your household. And this is going to help you do an inventory of what's going on in your environment to identify, where you can minimize toxin exposures or make changes and shifts in your lifestyle to help you feel like your best self, basically.
Love it. So if you want this recipe or the toxin checklist, be sure you're a member. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. For just $10 a month, you get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. It's a total deal. I say it all the time. It's a steal when you take advantage of the full offerings. You save far more than that $10 cost. As a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority, this membership supports this podcast and this community so we can continue to bring you new episodes every week. So remember, you're going to go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or just click the link below in the episode notes because that's a whole lot easier. Once you're there, it's about 3 or 4 clicks, and then you're all set. You'll get this week's recipe for the freezer-friendly breakfast burritos and the toxin checklist from Jenn Malecha.
You said it. You're great.
I did. Awesome. It's the little wins sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jenn. So your background in kinesiology and personal training, then coaching. So what led you to then becoming a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and then this whole thing about mold and mycotoxins?
Yeah. So here I was, armed with this degree in kinesiology as a personal trainer. I was actually running like a gym, like running a multi-million-dollar gym, thinking that I'm the healthiest person that I know, right? I'm eating boneless, skinless chicken breasts, counting calories, eating every 2 hours, like exercising, training for marathons and fitness shows. And at 25, I was diagnosed with skin cancer. And I was like, how did this happen? This doesn't make any sense. There is no family history of skin cancer in my family. And there was like nothing that was correlating in family history at all. And I do live in San Diego, which is a more sunny place than most, but I'm not an obsessive like suntan or anything like that. And my doctor couldn't explain to me what was happening or why this occurred. And it was really scary because, at that time, think about when you were 25, like you just want to live like, life freely and do whatever you want. And I was sitting there thinking like, God, am I going to have to like bathe in sunscreen every single time I like step outside? Am I going to have to get like a new wardrobe, like all this UVB or UVA protective clothing, like wear these like not cute hats? I was not excited about this situation and the fear that it would spread, right? So being diagnosed with melanoma was really scary as well too because of what does my future look like? And so it really sent me searching for answers, and that's when I found functional diagnostic nutrition, which is a lab training and certification program for all kinds of people to like learn more about the physiological aspects of the body. And like, Jen, I was blown away when I took this course because I took college physiology. Like I took biology, I took human anatomy, and none of my professors ever talked about the systems of the body and how they interact in the way that Reed Davis does. He's the founder of
Yeah.
that program.
We've interviewed Reed. So for everybody,
Amazing.
Yeah, go back. You can listen to Reed's episode.
Yes. So like all the pieces of the puzzle came together, did the lab testing on myself as part of that training, and had really high oxidative stress, which is cellular DNA damage. I mean, hello, what is skin cancer or cancer at all? It's cellular damage. And then also had like really high levels of bacteria in my gut going on, liver congestion, hormone imbalances. And so, luckily, through that training, I'm sitting here with you today and I'm over 17 years skin cancer free, never had a
Nice.
reoccurrence of
Congrats.
any kind of cancer ever again, which was amazing, and went on to live my best life for a long time until about 2016. Actually, rewind probably like 2014. I slowly started putting on weight, and despite all the things that I was doing, right? So I was back in this place of like, but I'm doing all the things. What is happening? I don't understand. And so I just worked out harder, and I like got more meticulous about my food, and I like worked on my detox protocols even more. And over the course of 2 years, I slowly put on about 15 pounds and was super frustrated. I also, in this course of time, started to experience cystic acne. I had never had acne, like not even in puberty, like not as a teenager, like never had acne. So to have cystic acne on my face and on my back and my skin, it was just like torture because it's something that you see every single time you look in the mirror, right? And it just horrified me. And it was like so frustrating. And then I started having breakthrough periods. So I was on the birth control pill, which we'll probably talk about that a little bit today, and was having these breakthrough periods that were occurring. And I was like, my hormones are going haywire. Like, what is going on? I don't understand. And really, I hit this like super rock bottom moment. One morning, I woke up and my right breast was super inflamed. There was this huge red streak from like my nipple all the way out to my armpit. And you could feel heat coming through 2 layers of clothing, like wearing a sports bra and like a shirt. And I was like, oh my God, like this is breast cancer. Like I've had skin cancer. This is breast cancer, right? So I'm at like 30 at this time and I am freaking out about this. And then also I had a period that lasted for 12 days. 12
I'm like,
days,
oh,
right? Exactly. So I was still doing a little bit of personal training at this time. And it was a Thursday morning. And I had this like loyal client. She left the gym with me. I trained her at home. So I'd get up and I drove to her house, trained her at 7 a.m. and my period stopped after this 12-day stint. And I was like, yes, right? Come home. I sit down at my home office and I get to work doing my, coaching work and stuff that I do. And 2 hours later, my period starts again. And I'm like, what is going on in this house? Like, what is
right.
happening in here? And literally divine intervention, like later that day or that morning, I opened up like, here's my desk. And literally like a foot or two away from me is the closet. As most of us do, we work from home. Like my office was in the guest room. And I like opened the closet to get some packing supplies out to ship my clients some supplements. And I look up and there's black mold all over the ceiling. I don't know how I had never noticed this. And kind of like realize is that when we moved into that house in 2010, so we moved in that house in 2010, I found this mold in like 2016. We moved in, there was a roof leak. I wasn't a functional health practitioner yet. So I didn't even think anything about it, right? And I was also a really hard year. Like my mom was hospitalized, almost passed away that year. So I was just not present. And so my husband like fixed the roof leak and we went on in our life. So that roof leak could have been occurring for who knows how long.
Right.
But I had been sitting there next to it for about 2 years because once I started working from home, like building my own virtual practice, that was my office. And our black lab was actually the canary in the coal mine looking back. Like he actually had started having really significant GI disorder, chronic gut issues, like long before any of my symptoms really came to being super present in that way. So
amazing. Like if we pay attention sometimes, like with the dog or whatever, but we find things when we find them and then onward, right? So then your story, right? Finding the mold, an eye-opening experience. And you mentioned black mold, but I feel like let's pause for a second because most of the time people hear the word mold and they think of like food in the fridge or penicillin, right?
Right.
Not all mold is toxic in the same way.
True.
But also, and the word mycotoxins, I think, is potentially new for people. So will you explain these so that everybody's on the same page as us?
Yeah. So let's think like mold is like the stuff that we are used to like seeing. Like that's like out the external of it, right? And then mycotoxins are like the internal of it. It's the toxic elements or the toxicity that creates or that it holds right within the body. And true, like, the thing is, if we see moldy food in the fridge, you wouldn't eat the moldy food typically, right? But then you also have like, I just went to Spain recently and we went on this like cheese cave tour and they talked about how like they make cheese over, like age it in these caves and it produces quote unquote mold like penicillin, which at the time back then in those like ancient times, or like our ancestors, that's actually what kept them healthy. It was like this natural like antibiotic, but at these like relevant levels. So in our world now, there's a lot more mold than what we meets the eye, than what we think. And so we want to be aware of that because when I'm saying this, because like when you see like, oh, that like innocent, mildew, there's also the word mildew, right?
Oh, yeah.
That innocent mildew in the shower, you think nothing of it. However, that could actually be a sign of moisture accumulation in your home. And if you're already dealing with a moldy situation, even that exposure to some of that mildew can create more burden on the body, essentially. And it is an awareness. I want everybody to be more aware of this because there is so much more mold in our environment than we think, especially in some of these areas that have been hit with like these hurricanes lately and like flooding. And the thing that we want to know, or that everybody should know, is that there is no laws and regulations around how to treat properly and remediate water damaged buildings. So I am actually coming to you guys from a hotel room. Apologies for the background. And I'll have to tell you, Jen, I came into my room last night. So this is what I do when I go to a hotel, because hotels are some of the worst places for this. Before I unpacked all my bags from the bellman, I went to the room and I like cased the room looking for mold. And I'll tell you, I pulled back the curtain by the window and literally the wallpaper was peeling off the wall and there was black mold on the wall. I immediately went down to the lobby and I was like, I need a new room, not sleeping in here. And I'm a little bit more aware now. I can tell when I walk into a space that it doesn't smell right. And then got my second room, checked it out. like didn't see anything visible here. So I'm like in this room for right now. But these are the things that we want to start to pay attention to because they do have a very, very significant impact on your health.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, right?
Mhm.
Like you mentioned your symptoms, the weight gain, the breakthrough periods from the birth control, the long
Mhm.
cycle. Talk to us about what they do in the body, endocrine disruption, all that good
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah, and let's talk about the scale of like reactivity too, because this is often the challenge with mold and why it's not addressed or why it's overlooked is because one person in the house can be having a reaction to it and nobody else is.
Yeah.
And that happens for a couple of different reasons. Like my husband was, apparently fine, essentially. So there is a genetic component to this, and only about 25% of the population has a genetic mutation that makes them more susceptible to mold exposures. Like I'm not actually that person. So there are cases out there like there's a really great book that a naturopathic doctor wrote called, I think, Is It Mold? And she talks about like how sensitive she is, where she walks into like an airport where the carpet is moldy and she will have an instant reaction. That's not necessarily me, right? So you can be that type of person where you walk into a room, you walk into a water damaged place, a moldy place, and you're going to instantly have a reaction and know. This could be, something like a respiratory reaction. It could be a GI upset, like a gut reaction, bloating, eyes watering, skin irritation. I actually get more of those types of symptoms with chemicals in the air than I do with mold. So that's going to be like on that super sensitive side. And then you've got, everybody else in the population. And so what happened with me was it was a progressive buildup over time. So if we go to that word mycotoxins again, what is part of the root that's in there? Toxins. It is a toxin, right? So when we have this continuous exposure over time to mycotoxins, it starts to really wreak havoc and wear down all the other systems of the body. And mycotoxins also like mimic estrogen in the body. So they're what we would call like a xenoestrogen or an estrogenic compound in the body. So for women, this is where we can then see some of those like estrogenic type of symptoms, things like the acne that I experienced, things like the weight gain that I was putting on, because essentially what was happening is my body was becoming estrogen dominant. So there's a multi like layer of factors that are happening like when we have this continuous exposure to these mycotoxins, these toxins, it's burdening the liver and the detox pathways. So the body can't get these mycotoxins out, let alone the hundreds of thousands of other toxins that are in our environment, right? So you're just getting pounded, assaulted like all day long with these toxins, and your cup starts filling up. And then it starts overflowing and it's backing up, right? And so it also, like you said, it's an endocrine disruptor. So it's going to disrupt the rest of the hormones. So for me, the expression of this was I was estrogen dominant. I then was hypothyroid. So it really affected my thyroid function, where my thyroid slowed down, as people would say. And I wasn't producing great thyroid hormone. And it triggered an autoimmune response in my body. I had antibodies for thyroid antibodies. So I was technically Hashimoto's as well, too. Right. So any of these myriad of symptoms could be related to a potential mold exposure. And mold can get trapped in the body. So I actually like thinking back about, my history, going back to my college days, my very first apartment that I lived in coming out of the dorms, like my sophomore year of college, was riddled with mold.
I'm sure every house I lived in college
I
was
know,
riddled with
right?
mold. Yeah.
And it's so funny because I actually didn't even remember this until somewhat recently. My best friend was like, don't you remember that they like basically the flooring of the shower fell through because it was so like the wood was just mush? And I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot about that. So when we have these like situations where we're living in mold in these water damaged places, the mold also gets trapped in our body because the body is brilliant. And what it does is whenever there are toxins or molds, it like encapsulates them in fat. So it'll like encapsulate toxins and mold into fat. And this is where we then start putting on weight that we can't lose because it's the body's protective mechanism. So it's brilliant. It's frustrating for us as we're like eating healthy and exercising, but it's actually a brilliant mechanism. So weight gain, weight loss resistance, those are also some common signs. Other things that I experienced was I'm also a runner. So I would go out to go running in the morning and my legs just started feeling like dead weight. Like I was just like, why is it so hard? And I was then beating myself up mentally about it. Like I need to train harder. I need to do more. And mold affects your circulation, specifically to the capillaries of the skin, like at the surface level. So when we're exercising, like running, we're creating lactic acid in the body. This is like where you're, especially when you're weightlifting and you get that burning feeling, that's the lactic acid. And then we flush that out. And if you ever experience like, you're sore the next day or a couple days after, that's from lactic acid buildup as well too. And so the mold, because mold was affecting the circulation, like I wasn't flushing out, like I wasn't getting good oxygen delivery to the muscles for the muscles to work, for one. And two, the lactic acid buildup was just not getting flushed out because of the poor circulation. So that's something else that you would never think could necessarily be mold related, right?
Right. I think that's part of the frustrating or challenging, confusing piece of this is that the symptoms that we might experience connected to mold or mycotoxins, right, look like symptoms of a plethora of other things. And so we tend to, as our Western medicine system does, right, address all of those symptoms rather than saying, well, what else could be going on here? Because to your point, the body is always doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And to your point too, everybody's symptoms can be different, right? I know ear ringing, vertigo, teeth grinding is also not. Will you speak to some of that stuff too?
Yeah. And I kind of like chuckle because I'm like, yes. And so what happens and what's okay, so let's take a step back. So you said earring, vertigo, teeth grinding. And yes, those are related to mold in this interconnection of parasites, bacteria, and yeast overgrowth. So when we are in a moldy environment or we have mold exposure going on, we become a good host for bacteria, parasites, and yeast overgrowth within the body, right? So then we can have that experience of vertigo, ear ringing, teeth grinding, brain fog, not being able to think very well. We can also have digestive problems like bloating or, diarrhea or constipation as well too. Like the spectrum of mold related symptoms is wide and far and vast and all the things. And so, when I work with clients, mold is not always where I go though. Right. So we do want to like think about like we want to investigate and go what's been going on in your home and look for correlations. Right. So I have, for example, one client who travels quite a bit for work. And so when he's at home, like he is constantly running to the bathroom, like has all this GI upset. When he's on the road, he doesn't have that, even though he's eating out less clean food. And I'm like, this is interesting. So we're looking for those correlations to go, interesting, when you're in your home, when you're in this environment, you're experiencing this. When you're outside of your environment, you're experiencing this. And this, you guys, is like, if you think that you might have mold, this is like we call it a mold sabbatical. This is like a test that you can do, is leave your home for a couple days. And ideally, if you can get out into a place of nature, like go rent an Airbnb out in the woods or something like that, that's most ideal. And if you notice a difference in your symptoms, that's probably a pretty strong correlation that you've got mold in your environment.
Yeah.
And that those symptoms are related to that.
Yeah. And so I love that as, a simple test for ourselves because we share all this at the risk of like creating hysteria, right? So that's not the goal, right? So I want to promise everybody you're going to be fine, right? And we're going to talk about what you can do right? More testing, recovery, right? All that stuff. Let's pause here to highlight our partner for this episode. Big thanks to Snap Cleaning Products for supporting Salad with a Side of Fries. Make household and industrial cleaning a snap with their eco-friendly, economical, multi-purpose Snap products. Snap's concentrated, multi-purpose formulas perform light to industrial strength jobs all in one bottle. Snap products give you the cleaning power of a variety of cleaners, saving you time, money, and valuable storage space. And Snap products are developed with the environment in mind, using plant-based ingredients that are biodegradable, phosphate-free, non-toxic, and bottled in recyclable containers. So when it comes to toxins, home cleaning products are major offenders. It's one of the reasons why I love Snap, because their products are made of enzymes. So they actually break down organic stains and material to remove them. In particular, I love the triple enzyme laundry detergent. It's just $13.95 for 40 ounces, does up to 80 loads of laundry. It's truly free of chemicals and additives. The dish soap is $11.95 for 32 ounces. Maybe you're ready to one fell swoop clean up all the home cleaning products. You can do that with the Snap Pack. That's just $89.95. All these prices are before your discount. You get 10% off and free shipping because you're a Salad with a Side of Fries listener. So text the word CLEAN, CLEAN, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, text the word CLEAN, CLEAN, to 844-947-4846 to try Snap, in particular the triple enzyme laundry detergent, or get the Snap Pack. Everything is 10% off and you get free shipping. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Okay, Jenn, you mentioned testing by sort of like the mold vacation, right? And you meant a couple days is enough. Like it doesn't necessarily take all that long.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Definitely. Especially for people that are having a little bit more of a sensitive reaction. Like if I think about myself and, my symptoms were a little bit deeper in a sense of like going away for 3 days isn't necessarily my acne is not going to go away, right? Or the weight's not going to all of a sudden just fall off necessarily. But you will feel like less brain fog, or if you're having a respiratory reaction, for example, or skin reaction of different type, bloating, gas, digestion, that kind of stuff, you could definitely see a difference within a matter of a couple of days. I mean, Jenn, when I found the mold in my guest room, I immediately moved my computer and things out to our dining room space just to get out of that room specifically. And it actually took us some time to remediate. And I did, within a couple of days, feel different, especially from a brain fog perspective.
Yeah. And then what about VCS testing? Will you walk through some of those pieces? Yeah.
Yeah. So VCS stands for visual contrast screening. And when we are exposed to mold, chronically like this, not like a one-time instance for 10 minutes or an hour or something, we're talking like living in it or staying in it for a while, it can affect the body's ability to see contrast, which is color contrast, right? So you can Google VCS, visual contrast screening. There's a couple of different ways to go do the testing. This is Richie Shoemaker, Dr. Shoemaker is one of the original kind of pioneers in the mold space. So he offers it. A couple people do, and it's pretty inexpensive, usually around $15 to do this assessment online. And you do it from your computer. It's so easy, right? And if you fail the screening, it's a pretty clear indication that you should continue to investigate and see if you've got mold going on. So it's a really inexpensive way to take a first step and then get confirmation to say, yes, I need to move forward with figuring out where this mold is or do further testing, right? Now, I actually passed the test. So
interesting.
Yes. So it is not this hard and fast rule of everybody is going to react to this way. And this again is the beauty of the body, is that we're all just biologically different, right? And so symptom expression is going to be different for every individual. So I passed the test, but I clearly had mold going on in my house. So from, biological makeup, maybe my, visual eye health is just healthier than other people's, or I'm just wired differently for that reason. But again, it can be a really good initial assessment to, if you fail, then it's yes, confirmation to take the first step. If you pass like I did, but still suspect that you've got mold, then we just want to do other testing to figure out, look for more clues, essentially,
Yeah. And that would be urine testing?
Yeah, I prefer to do urine testing. It's kind of the standard in the industry right now for um, most proven testing out there. So it's this very simple at-home urine test. There's a couple different companies that offer it, um, and each company will have, a lot of them do the same list of mycotoxins, but some have more versus others, right? So either way, you can do that testing and get some insights and clues about what is going on. And, I have to say, like, one of the things I want to mention here, Jenn, that's kind of like new and interesting before we spoke to do this podcast, is that my husband is actually working with a functional medicine clinic that is doing research around mold toxins in grains related to autism.
Wow.
And so grains are a place where there is high infiltration of mycotoxins, ochratoxin specifically. And this is where we can get a lot of that toxin exposure when we're eating quinoa or oats or corn or wheat, for example, and also coffee.
Yes.
Mhm. Coffee for multiple reasons, not just the beans, but here in this hotel room, there's one of those I don't know what those things are, like the little Nespresso pods, the pods. That is the worst. I mean, inside the pod, you're going to get mold accumulation and also these machines that create, that make the coffee or whatever you're doing. And this is at your home too. Who's ever cleaning the inside of those things? That's where we get exposed to a lot of mold also.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we suspect, we
Mm-hmm.
maybe do some testing. What do we do next? Because I think it's to some degree safe to say for many
Mm-hmm.
people listening, you're already eating more whole foods. You're already choosing low glycemic impact nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
Where can we sort of level up? And what are some of the other things that we might want to hone in on to address this?
Yeah. So I would really recommend that people work with a professional, somebody who's skilled in this area to do a mold protocol when it comes to supplements and other therapeutic modalities, because you really should do it safely. And slow wins the race here, basically, you guys. I remember jumping into, at the time before I think I found the mold, we had gotten an infrared sauna. And I was going in the infrared sauna, not knowing that I really had this situation. And I could not tolerate the infrared sauna, and I wasn't doing binders before and after the sauna. So that's just a great example of something that's very commonplace out there these days, people doing cold plunges, infrared saunas, that type of stuff. And we want to understand what's happening with the body and how do you support the body when you're doing those therapies, right? The safest thing that anybody can take action on is removing yourself from the moldy situation. Step one, before you do supplementation, do any of that stuff, is remove yourself from the moldy situation. And here's the word of caution with that, or the trick, is that you really want to find somebody that is an expert in mold remediation.
Yes.
So mold remediation, again, there's no regulations or laws out there that standardize this, right? So I'm just going to quickly explain to people what they're looking for with a mold remediator. When they come in, they should airtight seal off the section of the home or the building that has the mold. So molds, mycotoxins are airborne. We do not once they cut all that out and start construction and working in there, we don't want that flying all around the house, right? So we want them to seal it off. They should come in with air scrubbers so that if any air escapes that sealed off space, it's getting scrubbed, and there should be air scrubbers inside the sealed off space as well too. They're going to cut out and remove the moldy, contaminated wood, materials or whatever. And they're also going to treat the space. They're treating the space not with Clorox bleach, because Clorox bleach actually makes mold worse. It gets resistant to it and grows. So they should be treating it with a very specific mold solution. Actually, the best types of mold solution are essential oil based, honestly. And then they remediate. They should be coming back a couple days later to test the space and make sure that they're not finding any mold, any more toxins, right? So that is like a safe remediation. There's a lot of different companies out there. Just know what to look for. When you do that, you should also then have all of your air ducts, like if you have a whole house HVAC system, have all your air ducts cleaned and your air filters replaced because it got up in that situation, right? So then when we are, what do we do with our body? And if you're already eating whole foods, this is where working with a practitioner is going to be really helpful because you're already eating whole foods, which is a healthy place to be. When we have a moldy situation like this going on, it creates a hypervigilance of inflammation in the body. So you might be sensitive to even healthy foods, right? So I've had clients that show up and they're like sensitive to beef, even though they're eating grass-fed organic beef because they've had mold situations in their house. So running a food sensitivity test can help you drill down into specifically these healthy foods that could be creating inflammation temporarily right now that we want to maybe minimize or eliminate in order to give the body space to heal, and then you can bring them back in,
I
right?
want to emphasize what you just said and make sure everybody heard it, because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times the interpretation is, I'm going to do this food sensitivities test, and then it means I'm never eating those foods ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're saying, and I just want everybody to hear it, and we've talked about this before, but it bears emphasizing, right? We remove these foods for a period of time to
Mm-hmm.
support healing
Right.
that then allows us to add those foods back in eventually.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Like when I encountered mold and then was like, I have Hashimoto's and all this stuff going on. I did an autoimmune AIP diet for the period of time that I needed to do to get my Hashimoto's into remission. And I was in remission within 6 months, right? So then I was able to, play with bringing some of those foods back into my diet, essentially. So then we want to make sure that we're supporting our gut health and our detox systems first and foremost. So we want to make sure that we're optimizing digestion, helping to repair the intestinal lining, which is where our immune system really does a lot of its activity. Like that's where it resides, 80% of it or so. And so we want to heal those tissues. So there's different nutraceuticals and supplements that I like to use to help support the GI system first. And then we look at, adding in binders or other products that are going to help to open up the detox pathways and start safely binding up and pulling this stuff out of the body. Because what we want to also understand is that when we have mold, it also traps other toxins in the body too. And we really need to work with the body and get it into a safe space for safe elimination. And the body is going to hold on to these, things in the tissues until it feels safe to release them, essentially, right? So this also means working on lowering your stress, making sure that you're resting. Like I also, in this time when I was, found the mold and went on a healing journey, I committed to only yoga and walking for 30 days so that I wasn't going to the gym and lifting weights and breaking down muscle tissue and breaking down my body and asking it to repair when it was in such a weak place, right? And then once I got back to, feeling better again, I went to the gym this morning and I'm doing deadlifts and all the things again. So you'll come back to that place too. We just really want to honor what the body needs in order to help it heal from a situation like this.
Yeah, I think it's really important what you're sharing too is all the other things that wreak havoc on
Mm-hmm.
our system.
Mm-hmm.
This just sort of exacerbates that. And when we're focused on this recovery and healing and remediation,
Mm-hmm.
right, we make other choices for that period of time with the objective of eventually, right, we can move
Mm-hmm.
past this phase two,
Yes.
and I think so many people can be resistant to that approach because we feel like, oh, it's taking away things that we
Mm-hmm.
enjoy,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Right. And I always say yes, and you're also giving your body exactly what it needs
Exactly.
to feel your best, and it is, I think for everybody here, it's whenever we, in any healing place, or health hurdle that you might be facing, it's how do we stage out healing and pace you through it, so this kind of is a great point to maybe bring up with the toxins checklist that they can get access to is you're going to do this inventory, and then it can feel overwhelming to go, oh my God, I had no idea that I had all these toxins in my house or in my environment. Where do I start? And Jenn, I always tell people like, phase one is focusing on the things that go in your body. So what are the foods that you're eating? What are the things that you're cooking with? What's your water quality? Because whatever you're putting in your body is having a direct and immediate effect, right? And then stage two is like whatever is going on your body. So this is all your personal care products, your shampoos, your conditioners, all those things that then get absorbed through the skin, and the body has to process and metabolize those. And then the third place is like the environment. And it's this progressive journey that we're going to be on. Like, when we bought our house in 15 years ago, remember before I said earlier that I wasn't a functional health practitioner back then, so I didn't know any better. We bought a Tempur-Pedic mattress, which is super toxic, come to find out. And we recently, it had been over 10 years, we needed a new mattress. So I did all my research, and now we have an organic, latex, toxin-free mattress. So this is going to be, it's a life journey, to just keep it getting better and better, and a process. And we just step by step it, basically.
Yeah. And along that front too, I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't mention like EMFs.
Oh, yes, please.
Go ahead.
So the thing about EMFs is it just becomes so much a part of our norm. But
by the way, this is EMF is like the radiation.
Oh, yes.
Right? Like Wi-Fi, radiation. Frankly, I am such a culprit of that. I have my ring, I have my watch, I have all the things, right? Like, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. Phones, everywhere is connected. What I found fascinating is because now I'm so aware of it. Like, so on your phone, you've got cellular data, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and my dear friend, colleague, and also my practitioner, Sinclair Canali, one day, she was like, do you really need to be getting hit by 3 different types of radio frequencies all day long? And I was like, good point. So now on my phone, I turn everything off except for the thing that I need, right? And what I found fascinating is that when I leave my house to go for a walk or like drive down the road and I forget to turn on cellular data, like somehow I'm still connected to Wi-Fi even though I'm not in my house. And I'm carrying on a conversation on the phone with a friend. And I'm like, this is just an example of that there is Wi-Fi like everywhere, right? So the thing about EMFs, you guys, is especially with mold, it makes mold worse. So EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, it is a frequency. Everything around this is energy and vibration. It will interfere with the mold like cells, like the mold particles being able to communicate with each other. And then they feel like they're being attacked. And so then they proliferate more, right? This is also true for parasites and bacteria and things going on in our body.
Right.
Not to mention that EMFs also interfere with our regular cells, like our tissue cells, to be able to communicate with each other and inhibit that communication. So here in my hotel room, you can't see it, but I have this little EMF net that I carry with me, like a Wi-Fi router cover. So I have this over the little Wi-Fi place over here. I've turned off as much as I can as possible. And this will help us. It's like looking at all these inputs, these distortions that are things that are disturbing our body from being in its natural place. And how can we just lessen the load, essentially, right?
And take the steps that we're willing and able to take when we're willing and able to take them versus feeling like, as we said a couple minutes ago, feeling like you have to do everything all at once and then totally overwhelmed.
Yes. Like at home, my home office, I have hardwired my internet, right? Like I plug in. Such a weird thing to do, right? Because we're so used to having Wi-Fi. But I'll tell you, Jenn, it has made such a huge difference, for me. Like I used to kind of get a little bit, little tired in the afternoon time, and I don't have that anymore. And sometimes I still turn on my Wi-Fi on my computer so that I can Bluetooth share something from my phone or whatever. Like there's the occasion when you need it. And if I forget to turn it off within a couple of hours, I'll be like, oh, I feel a little tired. And I'm like, oh, crap, I forgot to turn my Wi-Fi off, So I wear all the things too. I have an Oura Ring. I hope you have yours in airplane mode.
Yeah.
Good job. So we can still use these devices, but they don't need to be pinging us all the time. I'm a big fan of continuous glucose monitors, and they use Bluetooth, but we don't you can turn the Bluetooth off. And then when you want to go look at your data, you just turn it on and the data load into the app. We don't need to be getting pinged by these frequencies all the time.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that's a good place to pause. We'll go into our rapid fire off topic questions, and then, we'll make sure everybody has your info too. So, you ready for this?
Yeah.
Rapid fire off topic questions that we ask every expert who joins us. All right. What's the best thing you've done for your health this week? What's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health? Because, balance.
Best thing I've done for my health this week is yesterday I went for a really long walk in the morning time, which sounds super simple, but that's because I drove 6 hours to Scottsdale to get here. And it's what my body needed instead of hitting the gym. Worst thing is I did partake in a couple bottles of wine on Saturday night to celebrate after an amazing event that I pulled off.
Love it. All right. If you weren't a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and coach, what would you do?
Oh my God, I would be like a marine biologist or work with animals. Like I literally saved a hummingbird with a broken wing on Sunday morning and took it to the wildlife center. And I was like, I wish that I could just work here.
Oh my goodness. All right. Your favorite book on any topic other than your area of expertise, or you could give us a fiction book.
I would say that one of my favorite books is because it relates to business and your life, like health, is 10X is Easier Than 2X by Dr. Ben Hardy.
Yeah. If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be?
Whew, that's a hard one. I think energy, which isn't but that is something that is so chronic. And I think if we figured out energy, it would give people the capacity. It gives people the capacity to work on all the other things, right? When we don't have energy, it's so hard to work on diet or sleep or, clearing out the stuff in our home. So energy is essential.
Mm-hmm. All right. If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
I think that my superpower would be helping people feel the love and the miracles of nature.
Love that. What's your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve is I don't understand, and I'm sorry if this is going to offend you or anybody else. I'm a zero inboxer. So when people have tens of thousands
totally
of unread messages, I'm like, how do you live your life? It gives me anxiety because I'm like, how do you know what messages are important? It's just all swimming in there.
I will say, I totally digress. This is not rapid fire, but I used to be zero inbox. I'm not anymore because of the way Gmail started reorganizing things. So there are tons of emails that I don't even see because it's separated into the important things and then all the other stuff.
Right.
So then on my phone, when it's all mixed together, I have hundreds of thousands of unread emails. Okay.
Right.
Anyway. All right. Last one, in your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness?
Gosh, that's a really great question. And this is super exciting, I think, right now, because I literally just came off of a call before we started this with Dr. Casey Means, who wrote the book Good
I know
Energy.
Dr. Casey. Everybody go back. We interviewed Dr. Casey in 2020, early 2020, a million years ago. Yeah.
And I just think that, oh my God, there's so much coming to the forefront now that it's hard to say. But one of the things that I'm actually super excited about is the expansion of the concept of functional medicine bleeding into other areas of the world. So Dr. Ruth Roberts is a veterinarian, and she has started a pet health coaching certification where she is bringing the concepts of functional medicine into the pet health space. And as somebody, I'm going to start to cry. As somebody who lost their dog to mold, basically, too young, I'm if I would have known the things that she teaches, I could have saved his life. And just as awful as our food products are as humans, our poor pets are taking a beating from toxic foods and toxins in our environments. Dr. Ruth talks about how cats and dogs, they have 4 paws on the ground all the time. They're sniffing the ground. Their toxic exposure is exponentially larger than ours.
Yeah.
And so I think I
That's
just love
exciting.
animals, clearly.
Yeah.
So it is
Awesome.
exciting.
I love that one. And it's different. I don't think anybody has said that. So that's awesome. Jenn Malecha, thank you for being here. Tell everybody how to connect with you, where to learn more, all the good stuff.
Yeah, well, I hope people will check out the toxins checklist along with your amazing breakfast burrito recipe that you've got going on. But I love to connect with people on Instagram. It's my platform of choice. It's where I love to hang out. So come on over, follow me at Holistic Health Boss. That's with a W for whole foods or whole body. And shoot me a message or come just check out some of this information along these lines that we've talked about today that I'm sharing over there.
Amazing. Well, thank you again. Just appreciate the way you explain things and your energy around it and your support for everybody. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, friends, on Friday in this week's Nutrition Nugget, we're talking all about methylene blue. So maybe you've seen people dropping this stuff in their water on social media. So what is it? What does it do? Is it worth it? We're going to get into it on Friday in this week's Nutrition Nugget bonus episode. So be sure wherever you're listening, click the plus sign or the follow button, and your app will alert you when the Nutrition Nugget goes live on Friday morning. Well, as always, everybody, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JennTrepeck. Pick your platform, send a message. I want to hear from you, your ideas, your takeaways, your questions, or on the website, asaladwithasideofries.com. Whatever's easy, send a message. I love nothing more than hearing from you. And this is also an easy way to find out about working with me as your health coach. And friends, finally, if you are not a member, join our membership program by going to glow.fm/saladwithasideofries. This shows your support for this podcast, this community, and most importantly, it supports your health. Plus, you'll get this week's recipe for the freezer-friendly breakfast burritos and the toxins checklist from this week's guest, Jenn Malecha. So until next week, consider if your frustrating symptoms that you're experiencing could be a function of mold or mycotoxins, and know that your body can heal. Start with the foundations, test, and take it one step at a time. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform, share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it and you are worth it. Happy healthy.